Coming up on this edition of VCU In Depth, documentaries from students in VCU's Robertson School of Media and Culture.
We'll explore an increasingly popular and provocative method of paying for college tuition and other expenses.
And we'll hear the amazing story of a Vietnamese refugee and how he has achieved success in Metro Richmond.
VCU In Depth begins right now. Good evening, and welcome to VCU In Depth. I'm Yasmin Lethea Rowe.
And I'm Taylor Jones. Thanks for joining us as we feature documentaries from undergraduate students in VCU's Robertson School of Media and Culture. Sacrifice, consequences, and a loss of innocence. These are just a few of the themes explored in our first documentary that dives into the modern yet controversial lifestyle known as sugar babying.
For the past 5 years, VCU has consistently ranked among the top universities in the country for students who become sugar babies. In this documentary called Sugar Sugar, we find out just what exactly sugar babying is, why it appeals to many students and young adults, and how good intentions can lead to unexpected outcomes.
We just had such a great connection, and we were drinking, and it was gonna be fun, and his house was nice, and he wasn't a creep, and I was like, yeah, I'd totally this guy. And I was like, I'm gonna this guy. And then I that guy, and then I was like, okay, so now I need to charge him for that.
I remember like rolling a blunt in the bathroom, and he just like busted in and like started making out with me, and it was like hot, and it was empowering, and I was like, yeah, like you want me and I'm dictating your experience. Like it's all in my hands. No matter how much you think that you're taking care of me, it's in my hands.
So we don't like have sex or anything, we really just hang out. He literally tells me stories and we watch college basketball and he gives me a lot of money. Yeah.
So what is sugar babying specifically?
The girl, usually younger, is going to be paid financially by the sort of benefactor in exchange for company, in exchange for entertainment, just dates. Sometimes it can be as casual as just going out to dinner, going to shows, just sort of spending time with each other. So I think the idea is that the girl can sort of live this elevated lifestyle and he's willing to foot the bill for it. I was familiar with it and I'd kind of been told that, oh, this is the app you should use. And I went on, made a profile, and I started getting hits pretty quickly. Like most people in their 20s, I've been on Tinder, and so it was funny to sort of see this Tinder format for sex work. And begs the question, well, if I'm already willing to do it on Tinder, then really what's the difference if I'm doing this with just more of an agreement and more of a benefit to me instead of just meeting up with a stranger at a bar? I mean, that's what we're already agreeing to do. Why not get actually compensated instead of wasting your time?
I was a stripper first for a really long time, and being a sugar baby is a lot easier than dancing for 9 hours. When you dance, like you build up like a clientele, you have like regular customers, and it kind of started off as that of just having really good regular customers that would come in, but more than half of the money goes to the club. You don't see that money. So after a while, they're like, I'm spending all of this money at the club when I can just we can meet outside of the club and I can give you more money. And that's really how it escalated to that.
I just, was having a really hard time keeping a good job. I was in school at that time, full-time student. I wanted for sure to ask for money. It was more of a personal thing. Like I had been frivolous with money in the past. I didn't want to ask my parents to consistently keep funding me. And at a certain point, I just wanted to be like, you just want your own independence. You want your own money. And that seemed like the easiest way, capitalizing off of my sexuality.
In order to join the website, you need to understand what you have to offer, what you want in a relationship, and be in a position of strength. And that's why I say most sugar babies who join the site are empowered. They know exactly what they want, they have goals, and they're out there to achieve them.
But there is that worry, though, isn't it? A vulnerable young girl who could go onto the site because it sounds really glamorous and really lovely, could get into a relationship where she's being exploited and being controlled by somebody and then could get stuck and it could become harmful, like they're suggesting.
I traditionally prosecute sexual assaults involving adults with the city of Richmond. One of the issues that I see with sugar babies is that it does make people very open to predators. They also know there is a shame associated with being a sugar baby, and it just promotes a sense of secrecy, and it promotes a system where predators are able to prey on them.
I did have a sugar daddy that I went on a date with. We tried to meet up and go on a second date. And at that point we had talked enough that we knew enough about each other, and he found me on Facebook. He found me on Instagram. I denied him, and I sent him a message and I told him I'm just not comfortable with kind of blurring those lines, and I wanted to keep my life separate. And months later, I was with my little sisters at Christmas time. We were down at the beach, and I saw she was on Instagram and this person was liking her photos, and it was him. My sugar daddy had also found my sisters and followed them on Instagram. So I had blocked him, and he wasn't bothering me. And from what I understand, he wasn't really messaging them or talking to them either. But that was a very like sobering sort of moment for me, because I don't think I had thought about putting any of my sisters or my family at risk. Not that really, it felt threatening, even if it wasn't malicious. I mean, it just felt sick. I mean, she's a high schooler.
My personal contact with sugar babies are as victims. So one that comes to mind particularly is a young lady who had been a victim of a violent rape when she first started as a sugar baby. And she had been lured to a hotel room under the pretext that the person was not going to invite her up. This was a get to know you to see if we want to spend time together. And once she was at the hotel, he got her to come up to the room where he violently raped her over a period of time.
Do you know how old the woman was?
19.
19?
Yes.
You can tell pretty fast if people are trying to scam you or if they're like sketchy. For me at least, like I'm super cautious. Like my location is always turned on. If you have any kind of like, street smarts, or if you have any kind of intuition, you're not gonna put yourself in a situation that's gonna, put you in like a snuff film or something.
The way it would be prosecuted would be it would fall under the definition of prostitution. So, and prostitution in Virginia is basically having sex for money, or there's an exchange of money. So you would have to narrowly define the act and prove that.
I feel like prostitution and sugar babying are the same thing. I think that sugar babying just has a little bit more of a modern and safer sort of guarantee to it. And I think that's why people who would never be a prostitute would look to sugar babying instead. But to argue that they're different, I think, is just getting into the politics of it.
When people talk about prostitution as being one of the oldest professions, if you think back to a caveman and a cave woman, do you think that the conversation went this way, that the woman probably said, I've got a great idea, let me sell myself, or did it likely go the other way? And so when you talk about prostitution today, it's not likely that a 21 or 22 or 23-year-old young lady is going to want to sell herself.
I don't see these middle-aged men selling me into sex slavery. You know what I mean? And if anything, I'm exploiting them. I'm hustling them.
If you're vulnerable because of a family situation at home, again, coming from abuse, coming from violence, whatever it may be, looking for love outside of the home, if that makes you vulnerable, then there are people that will prey on those vulnerabilities.
Every person I went to university with, male, female, everything in between, was like, they've all experienced something on the spectrum of sexual assault. You don't really get to pick where it lands on the spectrum, but it just is what it is. I don't think that anyone's just hopping into sex work because they were molested. I think it's oh, I thought about what sex really means, and some people just have urges they need to fulfill.
There are consequences that when you think no one will find out what you're doing, people do. When you think this won't impact you, a lot of times it does. And just be prepared for that.
Doing things like sugar babying can be rewarding, but I would never suggest it to someone long term. I would never suggest it as a total means of living. As long as you're communicating overly communicate. As long as you are, and if you feel icky about someone, you can also just cut them off. You don't have to keep seeing these people.
It's a really sick thing to do when you're young, and if you're super hot and you can push aside morals for a second, do it, for sure.
I'm Bill Oglesby, an associate professor in VCU's Robertson School of Media and Culture and the instructor for the documentary class. Joining me tonight are Will Hicks, Malcolm Key, and Tina Harding, who produced the Sugar Sugar documentary. And wow. Let me start off by asking you, Will. I mean, we heard that it's empowering to some of the people who engage in this, but at the same time, we heard warnings that it could also be dangerous. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, with this project, we wanted to try to, as much as possible, avoid moralizing the issue one way as much as possible and show it more as an issue of cause and effect, action and consequences. And to that end, the women we talked to have had very powerful and empowering experiences in this activity, but we've also talked to law enforcement professionals and others who have cast a light on the fact that this is also a means of exploitation from time to time. And so we want to be able to capture both of that, which is actually a bit of a challenge considering how little time we had to do it. So I hope we did these women justice.
So go in with eyes wide open if you're in this kind of thing. Malcolm, talk a little bit about, you were at one time thinking about using mostly VCU students, weren't you?
Yeah, that was our original plan, was to do our subject on strictly VCU students that were sugar babies, but because VCU was one of the top 10 schools for sugar babies, and we just kind of strayed away from that because we weren't in the top 10 anymore, or top 20 anymore, so we just had to get rid of that and just strictly focus on sugar babies in general.
Tina, I liked how you did reenactments in this. Tell us a little bit about that and the cinematography you chose to use.
Yeah, so with our reenactments, we wanted to create a story within the larger story. We didn't want to just make any assumptions about one of the sugar babies that we talked to, any one of their stories. So we got all the best equipment that we could. We got 2 local actors that are some good friends of ours, and we just shot it all together, edited it up. We decided to go with kind of a light blue kind of feel for it because the blue shows the darkness kind of the subject, but the light shows that there still is hope. And I hope that it comes across that way in the film.
Well, good. You did a good job on a tough subject, so congratulations. I've been talking with Robertson School students and documentary producers Will Hicks, Malcolm Key, and Tina Harding.
Thanks, Dr. Oglesby. From being a Vietnam refugee to the biggest craft brewer in Richmond, our next documentary tells the story of On Boy, who came to America looking for a better opportunity.
Now, 2 decades later, On has his hands all over the Richmond beer scene and has inspired many others. This documentary, called Everyone Knows the Answer, tells a true American success story.
I was just trying to do my thing, try to spread more into the community, but it spread, like wildfire. Richmond's now one of the beer destinations in the U.S., in the world. So.
I guess this is in 2004 or 5. There really wasn't a whole lot of beer scene or culture at all. A lot of bottle shops, and that's really where it took place. Then a place called Capitol Ale House opened, and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's just taps and taps and taps and taps. But then I started hearing, oh, you like Capitol Ale House? You should go check out Mekong. And I'm like, Mekong? Vietnamese restaurant? I feel out of this now, so I gotta go. And that's when I met On.
Yeah, I met On at Mekong in the back bar when he used to be bartender there. I think it opened in the 90s or something like that. It was a tiny little place.
On was there with open arms, big old smile. You can't forget that smile. His story it's unmatched. I've never heard a story like this before.
Well, yeah, the story about Mekong, it's really going way back. You know, we escaped Vietnam back in 1985, and then right after my dad got out from prison, because he was captured after Vietnam War in 1975, and then he got out in '84, and he looked at us like, you know, well, you know, we're not well educated and working on the farm every day, so my dad said, yeah, you guys need a better, you know, education, you know, better place. So that's when he sent three of our brother away, and we took a boat, and it took us 7 days and 7 nights to get to Malaysia. And along the way, yeah, we you know, we almost become fish food. So we ran out of water, the boat died in the middle of the seas, and we even run into pirates.
Pirates got involved. Pirates, not benign Jack Sparrow types either. I mean, you know, we're talking like these will kill you. And, you know, right there, this whole story might never have started. It's just amazing.
We got to the U.S. in 1986, and then we have great sponsors in town that sponsor us to Richmond.
We provided support for this family that came from Vietnam. We had a group of people that provided, one family provided banking support, help with the children. Karen was big on helping with the kids. It's just basically whatever needs they have to assimilate into the community.
I mean, the whole time in our head is like, we're going to paradise. I mean, this is what the U.S. to us is like. We are going to the promised land. And once we get off the airport, holy moly, the promised land is cold. Over 92 when I graduated from high school. And that's when, you know, my parents say, yeah, you know, the siblings are like working in warehouse shift, that's day, you know, some was working a day, some working a night, and the only thing that he see us is like, you know, holiday, you know, when, you know, a business closed. So have this idea of us say, you know, why don't you guys do something that, you know, that I can see you guys more often. We came to our church and see if we can get a loan. So they loaned us the rest, and then we bought the place, and then we turned it to Mekong.
And they had a really big wine portfolio, and that was his main focus then.
Yeah, it was struggling. Mostly, you know, that 2-3 times that we almost closed, it's like it's the family drama. You know, every family drama, and when you know, when places are struggling, you know, people want to do different things, and then you know, and then there's different opinion, and it's really tough.
And it wasn't doing, I think, what they had hoped it would do.
When I suggest to the family, we need to focus on more beer. We need to replace the wine with beer. It's nobody, you know, no one else does it in town, and it's not popular. But you know what? I mean, we're right in the bottom. So yeah, you know, we had English beer, Belgian beer, German beer. Why did we pick Belgian beer?
I don't know why. You have to ask him about that. That'd be an interesting question. I don't know why he picked Belgian beer.
Because Belgian beer, mostly in big 750, it looked like a nice wine bottle. And the Belgian beer, they have the single, the double, the triple, the quad. They're not hoppy forward. They're malt forward, which is more sweeter, more food friendly. So the name Answer come one time when we have a big beer event over at Mekong, and all of a sudden somebody yell out, "Beer's the answer!" And I look at what's the answer? So that name stick onto my head.
over the years, I've seen him with so many ideas, and all of them, when they first exit his lips, sound like madness to me.
One day, I was thinking to myself, you know what, I wonder if, how fresh the beer would be, if it's not come out from the town, It takes 2-3 months to get here. And then by the time I get here, they go, oh, I wonder how fresh would it be if we drink them next week, or 2 weeks, how fresh would that be? So I have that thought in my mind, you know what, maybe I should stick my hand in and start brewing some beer.
When he told me what he was gonna do, I'm like, you're the best beer bar in America already. You don't need to go and do this to yourself.
Oh, super psyched for him. I mean, it was everybody was always like, man, you need to, you need to open a brewery, and he was so good at like breaking down a beer. He was too passionate not to do it. And the second he said that, we were all like, yes, dude, you absolutely do this. It's gonna be great.
And he was working at Mekong, one of the owners of Mekong. And at the time we thought Mekong was so successful, we were worried to have him go out and try something different.
When we first opened the place, we opened without brewing because we haven't had our equipment in town because it was delayed. So we opened the place up actually 6 months before we actually brew. So we opened with guest beer.
It was kind of crazy. It was in its infancy. So even the decor, everything was very minimal. It was kind of like, let's do this now. It'll find its way, it'll work itself out.
The IPAs they brew are just great. The stouts that they're brewing are just amazingly good. And then you've got the Ondo program that he's doing. It's just out of this world, the things that he comes up with.
Yeah, so people always ask me a question you have 2 businesses next to next. Does it cannibalize the other? And I keep on telling people, it's the yin and yang. So we need something more fresh that will continue to have more people come to the same spot, that can park in one spot and visit both places.
That beer program in Mekong is solid. I mean, they're just great people, and they work so hard. And then you can come right over here and have some of the best beer brewed in Richmond.
It's a great American success story, kind of rags to riches. But what we have loved watching is has constantly given back to the community that helped him build his
scene.
His scene, yeah.
So going from 1 brewery to now 32 in the past 7 years, has had an amazing impact on the industry.
It went from beer to like life very quickly. That was just sort of like the springboard into, I don't know, a friendship, really.
It's almost like, this is where everybody fell in love. This is where everybody got the urge. This is where everybody said, yeah, well, I'm going to do a brewery.
So, all the stuff I'm doing, I'm trying to, it's not intentional. It was unintentional, the stuff, the beer scene and stuff like, I was just trying to do my thing, try to spread more into the community, but it spread, like wildfire, Richmond's now one of the beer destinations in the U.S., in the world, so. But I just never have time to sit down and thought about it. It's like, I'm just always doing giving, stuff like that, so.
And we are here with the student producers of Everyone Knows the Answer, Marcus Paul, Caroline Banchoff, and Andrew Sanchez. I love his laugh. On's laugh is the best, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still, I'm sure there were challenges, Marcus. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so we didn't have too many challenges, but one of the hardest things that we had to deal with is everyone kind of having their own ideas and wanting to have creative freedom and trying to just bring everything together so each co-producer's input could be in the film and make it happen. So
I guess that's always the challenge, though. I mean, just sort of coordinating everybody's schedule and all this. And unlike a short form story, you're almost moving in with these people a lot of times.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, we were there a lot, and for everyone at the Answer and even Mekong, they were very generous to us. We had a great time there.
Caroline, talk to us a little bit about the rewarding parts of making a documentary like this.
Yeah, I think for me the most rewarding part was just getting to meet On and everyone who's a part of this community that he's helped create. I mean, we got to talk to bartenders and regulars and his family, and they all were just so welcoming and friendly, and they all had the same thing to say about him, which is that he's just the nicest, most humble person, and I think that we can definitely all attest to that.
Did they get to the point where they yelled your name when you came in, like Norm on Cheers?
Yeah, we all got to know each other real well.
All right. And Andrew, tell us a little bit about some of the memories you have. What were the memorable parts of making this documentary?
Oh, it had to been like the first day we were filming. Am was so generous and like allowing us to film him first, and then he was calling up people, seeing if they want to be in the interview, and he was also offering food, and it was just like an all-around great time.
Mm-hmm. It seems like this has a lot of timeliness about it when immigration is as much of an issue as it is. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just hearing his story and seeing where he came from and to the point where he is now. It was awesome to see, and it gives a lot of hope to people who are in that situation that you can come in and have a better life.
Yeah, and he was kind of on the cusp of Richmond becoming the brewing capital that it is for craft brewers. Would you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of right there at the beginning.
Yeah, no, he was. He started it all. I mean, his impact on Richmond and the craft beer scene is immense, and I think everyone who either has a brewery in Richmond or is trying to aspire to become have a brewery in Richmond, they all kind of come from On and his impact. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, thanks again to the producers behind Everyone Knows the Answer, Marcus Paul, Caroline Banshoff, and Andrew Sanchez. Good job, guys.
Thanks again, Dr. Oglesby, and all of the documentary students. That does it for this edition of VCU In Depth, and thank you for joining us. I'm Taylor Jones.
And I'm Yasmin Lethia Rowe. For all of us at VCU In Depth, good night.